Sir, my mom is crying outside. She said Christmas isn't for us. The city glowed the way only December cities do. Lights wrapped around lampposts like golden ribbons. Store windows shimmered with fake snow, toy trains, and mannequins wrapped in scarves that looked warmer than most people's lives. Music drifted softly from somewhere, gentle carols, mixing with the sound of footsteps on wet pavement. People laughed. People hurried. People carried bags full of things that would be forgotten by February. And outside the largest Christmas market in town, a small boy stood near the entrance, his shoes slightly too thin for the cold. He was maybe 9, brown hair, serious eyes. He kept turning his head toward the corner of the square, where a woman sat on a bench, hands pressed to her face. His mother. Her coat was clean, but old, worn at the elbows, buttons mismatched. She tried not to make noise when she cried. Crying quietly is a skill you learn when you've had to do it too many times. The boy didn't move toward her. He just stood there, like he was guarding something invisible. That was when the man in the dark coat walked by. Tall, calm, expensive shoes that didn't splash when he stepped through puddles. He moved the way people move when they're used to being listened to. Not arrogant, just certain. He paused for half a second when he noticed the boy staring at him, like the kid was looking directly through him instead of around him like most people did. The man adjusted the leather gloves on his hands. "Are you lost?" he asked. The boy shook his head. "No, sir." His voice was quiet, but steady. The man nodded, about to continue on, until the boy added, "Sir, my mom is crying outside." The words didn't sound dramatic. They sounded like facts. Plain, undecorated. He pointed gently toward the bench. "She said Christmas isn't for us." The man followed his gaze. He saw the woman, saw the way her shoulders shook, even though she tried to hide it. Saw her hands, thin, knuckles red from the cold. Something tightened, not in his chest, but somewhere deeper. "What do you mean?" he asked softly. The boy swallowed. "We came just to look." They were selling ornaments and cookies, and things that smell like cinnamon. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mom said we could walk through and pretend for a minute that we belong. He hesitated, but then she saw the prices. The man didn't rush him, and she said, "Leo, let's go. Christmas is for people who can afford it." The boy's gaze didn't waver. She went outside so I wouldn't see her cry, but I saw anyway. The man stood still. Cars passed. Laughter echoed. A group of teenagers ran past with cups of hot chocolate, and somehow, none of it seemed loud anymore. He looked at the boy. "Do you want me to talk to her?" The boy shook his head again. "No, sir. She doesn't like feeling small." He hesitated. "I just didn't know who else to tell. Not police, not security, not staff. A stranger. Someone who looked like he belonged anywhere." The man glanced again at the bench. Snow had begun to fall softly. Tiny flakes landed on the woman's dark hair, melting into something that almost looked like tears. He exhaled slowly. "Wait here," he said gently. The boy nodded, not relieved, not desperate, just trusting. The man crossed the square. He didn't hurry. He didn't tower over her. He stopped a respectful distance away, hands still in his pockets. "Ma'am," he said quietly. She startled slightly, wiping her eyes as if she could erase what had already been seen. "Yes, I'm fine," she said automatically. The most common lie in the world. "I'm not here to bother you." he replied. He paused. Your son is worried. She closed her eyes for a brief second. Of course he was. Of course he saw. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to cause trouble. We're leaving soon. He didn't move closer. He didn't offer tissues. He didn't tell her not to cry. He just stood there, like a person, not a solution. Christmas seems louder when you don't feel invited, doesn't it? Her lips trembled. She looked up at him, not defensive, not angry, just tired. Everything inside that market is beautiful, she said softly. Lights, music, warm drinks, families laughing, little girls choosing dresses for parties they're going to. She swallowed hard. And my daughter thinks our apartment is too quiet. So she keeps asking when Christmas will start for us. He saw it then. Not self-pity, not drama, just the quiet grief of someone who keeps walking forward, even when nobody is clapping for her. He took a slow breath. May I ask your name? Anna, she replied. And your son? Thou? He nodded. My name is Adrian. She waited, expecting a lecture, the pity, the awkward attempt at charity. It didn't come. Instead, he said, would it be all right if you stayed a little longer? Her brows drew together. We can't buy anything. I didn't ask you to, he said gently. He turned slightly, as though including the square itself. Sometimes places like this forget something important. They think Christmas lives only in what costs money. He looked back at her, but it doesn't. He gestured toward the boy. Your son didn't ask me for gifts. He didn't ask me for money. He asked me to see you. Her throat tightened. She didn't respond. He continued quietly. I own part of this market. Not bragging, just explaining. And I realize now, it wasn't built for everyone the way I thought. The words felt heavy because they were honest. He straightened a little. Tonight, just stay. Walk inside again. Warm your hands. Let your daughter and son look at everything. She blinked. Sir, I don't want special treatment. He shook his head. This isn't special treatment. It's correction. He smiled softly. Because a place that calls itself Christmas should never make someone feel unwelcome. She didn't cry this time. She breathed, slowly, like air was finally allowed back in. He tilted his head gently toward the entrance. Leo is waiting. She stood, gathered herself, and together they walked back toward the lights. And that was how the night began to change. Adrian didn't walk beside them like a hero escorting rescued people. He simply walked near enough that if something went wrong, he could help, but not so close that it looked like he was leading them. Inside, the market felt warmer. Strings of tiny yellow lights twisted through pine branches. Vendors handed out samples of roasted chestnuts. Children tugged on scarves, pointing at wooden toys carved into the shapes of deer and angels. Leo slipped into place beside his mother, eyes scanning her face the way only a child who has seen too much worry learns to do. She gave him a small nod, the kind that says, I'm okay enough to keep going. He didn't smile big. He just relaxed. A little. They walked past stalls filled with ornaments, each one shining like it was trying to be chosen. Anna slowed in front of one, a tiny glass house, covered in glittering snow, a warm light glowing inside. She looked at it the way people look, at something too beautiful to touch. Her fingers hovered, then fell back to her side. The seller smiled politely, the way sellers do when they know someone can't afford what they're looking at. Adrian noticed. He didn't step forward. didn't pull out his wallet, didn't announce himself, because buying things wasn't the thing that hurt. What hurt was being reminded again and again that some joys were not for you. He walked a little ahead and spoke quietly with one of the staff members. They exchanged a few words. No gestures, no pointing back at her, just quiet arrangements. When Anna and Leo reached the hot chocolate stand, the vendor smiled kindly. "Tonight," she said softly, "the first cup's free." Anna stiffened. Her pride rose like reflex. "I can't accept." The woman shook her head. "It's not a gift. It's part of something new we're doing. For everybody." There was no pity in her tone. It sounded like policy, not charity. Anna hesitated, then wrapped her hands around the cup. Warmth pressed in her palms. Steam brushed her face. Leo swallowed his first sip too quickly and winced, then laughed. For the first time that night, his laugh sounded like a child's. They found a small table near a heater. Christmas music curled softly around them. Not loud, not forced, just there. For a while, they didn't say much, because sometimes silence is the first sign that someone finally feels safe. Adrian stayed at a distance, leaning casually against one of the wooden beams, hands in coat pockets, watching the crowd, not them specifically, everyone, like a man seeing a familiar place differently. For the first time, his phone buzzed. Board members, invitations, reminders about upcoming holiday fundraising dinners. He looked at the screen, then locked it. None of that mattered. For the next few minutes, he noticed something else. A little girl, maybe 7, with the wool hat pulled down too low, face pressed against the glass of a toy stall. She wasn't begging, just looking. Her mother tugged gently on her sleeve. "Come on, sweetheart. We're just walking." The girl nodded, obedient, but her eyes lingered. Adrian exhaled. A pattern began to appear, like frost on glass. It wasn't about one family. It was about many. Christmas built like a city gate. That required a ticket. He went back toward Anna's table. He didn't sit. He didn't interrupt their moment. He just spoke quietly. "Things might be different here next year." Anna looked up. "Different how?" He took a second before answering. Less about buying, more about belonging. Her brows lifted slightly. "Why are you telling me this?" He thought about lying, or hiding behind vague corporate language. But tonight didn't call for that. "Because people let me build these places," he said honestly. "And sometimes we don't realize who we accidentally leave standing at the door." She studied him. "You're the owner, aren't you?" He didn't nod dramatically, didn't wait for recognition. "Yes." She didn't gape, didn't blush, didn't suddenly act impressed. Instead, she held his gaze steady. "Then notice this," she said quietly. "My children don't need gifts. We don't need free things." Her voice didn't shake. What hurts is when the world keeps reminding them what they don't have. He didn't respond right away, because sometimes wisdom doesn't come from meetings. Sometimes it sits across from you, in a worn coat, with tired hands. Leo returned from the nearby choir, where he'd been listening. He climbed onto his chair. "Mom, yes. Can we come here again when it snows?" She hesitated, not because she didn't want to, because she hated promising things she couldn't control. Adrian stepped in gently. "You'll always be welcome here," he said, not to impress, not to lure, just a promise. Leo nodded quietly, accepting the words without ceremony. Later, as the night thinned, and people drifted toward buses and cars. Anna gathered her scarf. "Thank you," she said. "Not in the way people say, when they've been saved. In the way people say, when they've been seen." He inclined his head. "Thank you." She frowned slightly. "For what?" "For saying out loud what most people only feel." She didn't answer. She just took Leo's hand and walked into the gentle snow. Adrian stayed after the market closed. No champagne, no speeches. He stood beneath one of the heaters, hearing distant laughter fade, smelling the last trace of cinnamon in the air. The market manager approached, clipboard tucked under his arm. "Everything okay, sir?" Adrian looked around slowly. "Not yet," he said. The manager shifted nervously. "Complaints? We can handle them." Adrian shook his head. "Not complaints," he said softly. "Corrections." And slowly, carefully, without rushing, they began to talk about things that didn't fit onto profit charts. Warm corners for people to sit, free drinks on freezing nights, spaces where kids could simply be kids. Not charity, dignity. A week later, snow covered the city like a quiet forgiveness. Anna walked the same street, Leo's mittened hand in hers, a small smile resting where fear used to live. She didn't know policies had changed. She didn't know volunteers now rotated shifts, ensuring no one stood alone outside the market doors. She only knew one thing. When they walked past the lights again, she didn't feel like she needed to hurry away. Leo breathed out softly, watching his breath cloud in the air. "Mom, yes. Can Christmas be for us now?" She looked at the sky, at the snow, at the world that had not suddenly become easy, but had somehow become gentler. "Yes," she said quietly. "Maybe it always could have been." And across the square, Adrian paused, hands tucked into his coat, watching not them, but all the others who lingered near the entrance now. People who would have walked away before. He didn't wave. He didn't step forward. He simply stood there, with the quiet understanding that sometimes the biggest change is not giving someone more, but removing the invisible sign that said, "This is not for you." Snow continued falling. Lights kept shining. And Christmas, for once, didn't belong to just a few. It belonged, quietly, to everyone. Winter does not disappear just because someone feels a little warmer. It stays. It tests. It asks quietly, was that kindness real, or only for one night? A few days later, Anna stood at the bus stop with 2 grocery bags. Wind bit at her cheeks. The sky hung low and gray, like it might snow again at any second. Leo stamped his feet lightly, trying to keep them warm. He didn't complain. He rarely did. His eyes wandered across the street, toward the market square. The lights were on again. Not bright, not loud, just steady. He swallowed. "Mom, yes." "Do we still walk past there?" The question wasn't about geography. It was about permission. Anna hesitated. Her instinct said, "Keep moving. Don't get used to places where you don't belong." But then she remembered the cup in her hands that night. The heater, the soft chair, the way no one watched her like she was stealing warmth. She nodded. "We'll walk." They crossed slowly. Something was different. A new sign hung near the entrance. Handwritten but neat. "Warm corner, all welcome. Seat, rest. No purchase required." Her throat tightened. Leo read it aloud, as if to make sure it was real. He whispered, "For everyone, a volunteer, a middle-aged woman with rosy cheeks and wool gloves, smiled at them gently. "No rush," she said. "Find a seat if you're cold. No clipboard. No registration. No prove you need this." Anna sat. She closed her eyes for just a second, listening to footsteps, bells, soft laughter. Leo rested his elbows on the table, watching snowflakes melt on the wood. And for a quiet moment, winter didn't feel like punishment. It felt like weather. Adrian, across the square, inside a small administrative cabin, Adrian stared at a page full of numbers. Profit forecasts, vendor fees, logistics, everything neat, everything correct, everything empty. He remembered Anna's words echoing in his mind. What hurts is when the world keeps reminding them what they don't have. He tapped the pen thoughtfully. The operations director, a man with a thin beard and expensive watch, frowned. "Sir, the free seating area, it reduces rotation. Fewer customers per hour." Adrian looked up calmly. "Fewer rushed customers," he corrected. The director tried again. "We might lose revenue." Adrian leaned back. "What we lose in rush sales, we may gain in loyalty, reputation, humanity." The director looked confused. He was used to numbers, not people. Adrian smiled faintly. "Run the projections again," he said softly. "And this time, include what happens when people actually want to come back." For the first time, the director didn't argue. He simply nodded. Something was shifting, not in spreadsheets, in priorities. Anna night. That evening, Anna sat at the small kitchen table in their apartment. The wallpaper peeled. The radiator clanked half-heartedly. Leo slept curled under blankets, breathing softly. On the table lay a stack of overdue notices, a half-written grocery list, and a folded bus schedule. She pressed her fingers to her temples. Bills didn't go away. Just because someone offered you a seat in the warm, kindness could not pay rent. Still, the memory of sitting inside without shame lingered like a soft aftertaste. She whispered to herself, "At least he saw us." And somehow, that mattered, not as rescue, as recognition. She exhaled, then picked up her pen. Tomorrow, she would go to another job interview, cleaning office floors. Not glamorous, not permanent, but one more step forward. The next day, snow fell thicker now, blanketing everything in white silence. Adrian arrived early at the market, hands wrapped in gloves, scarf tucked against the cold. He walked slowly, noticing details he had never noticed before. A cracked bench, a broken heater, a path where footprints faded too quickly near the gate. He stopped near the warm corner. A little girl slept on her mother's lap, wrapped in borrowed blankets, breathing peacefully. The mother's eyes were open, watchful, careful, grateful, and ashamed all at once. He didn't speak to them, didn't intrude. He simply turned to the staff. "We need more heaters," he said quietly. "Better chairs, and blankets, ones that don't feel temporary." No announcement, no cameras, just work, real work, the kind that makes cold nights a little less cruel. Leo school. Later that week, Leo sat at his desk. Children chattered about gifts, decorations, family dinners. He listened. He didn't join. The teacher smiled brightly. "Write your Christmas wish," she said. "You don't have to read it aloud." Leo stared at the page for a long time, then wrote, "I want my mom to stop pretending she isn't tired." He folded the paper carefully. Not sad, not dramatic, just honest. On the way home, He didn't tell Anna what he'd written, but he held her hand tighter, and she noticed. Adrian meets her again. One evening, as closing time approached, Anna stopped by the warm corner again. Not for heat, for a moment to breathe. She didn't see Adrian at first. He was sitting at one of the plain tables, coat still on, hand around a cup of tea. Normal, unremarkable, almost invisible. She hesitated, then approached. "You sit here too?" she asked softly. He nodded. "It reminds me why we built all this." Silence wrapped around them. Not awkward, not forced. She studied him. "You could have ignored us," she said. He didn't deny it. "I did. For years." The honesty surprised her. He looked toward the snow-covered square. "Success makes it easy to forget the ground you're standing on." His voice wasn't proud. It was tired, human. For the first time, she saw not a millionaire, but a man carrying something heavy that money didn't lift. She exhaled slowly. "Then maybe we both forgot different things," she said. He turned to her. "What did you forget?" "That I'm allowed," she replied quietly. "Allowed to sit, allowed to rest, allowed to exist without apologizing." Their eyes met, not romantically, not dramatically, just with understanding. Two worlds, finally acknowledging each other. Christmas Eve, the market glowed like a gentle star. Not loud, not luxurious. Warm. Families gathered. Couples walked slowly. Children pointed at lights. Anna and Leo arrived without hurrying. No nerves, no hesitation. They passed the gate, and nothing inside whispered, "This isn't for you." They found a small table. Leo colored with a dull red pencil. Anna watched snow drift past the window. Adrian walked by, not stopping, not hovering. He simply nodded. She nodded back. That was enough. Later, a choir began to sing softly near the tree. Voices rose. Not perfect, but sincere. Leo leaned against his mother. "Mom." "Yes." "Do you think he changed Christmas?" She thought, then shook her head gently. "No," she said. He remembered it. Adrian home. That night, long after the market closed, Adrian sat alone in his apartment. No music, no champagne, no party. He opened a drawer. Inside, a folded letter from one of the volunteers, a list titled "Warm Changes," and a drawing, a small crayon sketch left on a table in the warm corner. It showed three figures, a woman, a child, and a man in a coat, all sitting, same height, no one towering, no one small. He placed the drawing on the shelf slowly. Not decor. Reminder. He whispered to no one. "Don't forget." Snow brushed the windows, and somewhere, not far away, a boy slept peacefully, knowing his mother didn't stand outside in the cold anymore, pretending she didn't feel it. Christmas morning didn't arrive with trumpets. It came quietly, like light slipping under a door. Anna woke before Leo. Habit. Years of mornings that meant rushing, counting coins, making choices, bread or bus ticket, soap or milk. But today, the apartment felt different, not richer, just still. She sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, listening to the radiator knock, to Leo's soft breathing, to the gentle weight of silence that didn't judge and didn't hurry. She went to the kitchen. The table was still scratched, the kettle still old, the tiles still cracked, but the fear that usually sat in the chair across from her was gone. In its place, space. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was already losing, Before the day started, she poured water into the kettle, watched steam rise, and smiled without realizing. Behind her, small footsteps padded across the floor. "Mom!" She turned. Leo's hair stuck up in every direction. His eyes were sleepy, but there was something bright inside them. "Merry Christmas," she whispered. He came closer, hugged her waist. Not tight, just steady. "Do we go to the market today?" he asked carefully. She hesitated, not because she was afraid of being turned away, but because the idea felt new, almost fragile. "Yes," she said quietly. "Not to take, just to be." He nodded, like that answer made sense. Because it did. Market, morning. The square was softer today. Snow lay thick and untouched in places, like white blankets carefully tucked in. The tree glowed. Not brighter, not bigger, just warmer. There were fewer people, more slow steps, more hands held. Anna and Leo walked through the gate. No one watched them. No one measured their clothes. No one waited to judge whether they belonged. They simply entered. The warm corner looked lived in now. Blankets folded neatly, chairs pushed back, cups stacked, little handwritten notes pinned to a board. "Thank you for the seat." My kid stopped shivering. I remembered what it feels like to breathe. Anna traced one finger along the edge of a note. Not to claim it, just to feel the truth of it. Leo climbed onto a chair, swinging his legs slowly, eyes moving around the room like he was memorizing it. A volunteer brought cups of tea. No questions, just, "Here, it's hot. Careful." Anna murmured thanks, hands automatically cupping the warmth. She didn't realize she was smiling again. Adrian arrives. Adrian entered quietly, brushing snow from his coat. No entourage, no announcement, no one pointing. That's him. He walked as any other visitor, greeting the staff with small nods, taking in details carefully, like a man learning to read again. He noticed the heaters, the extra chairs, the coats in the corner labeled free. He noticed something else too. People staying, not because they were trapped by cold, but because it finally felt safe to stop. He turned and saw Anna across the room. She didn't rush to him. She didn't stand. She simply lifted her eyes. He walked over, unhurried, respectful. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," she answered. Leo looked up. "Hi," he added, calmly, like talking to someone who had become part of the room itself. Adrian smiled. They sat in a quiet triangle, not center stage, not highlighted, just part of everyone else. He looked at Anna. "No speeches today," he said lightly. Her lips curved. "Good." He hesitated, then continued. "I wanted to tell you something, not as the man who owns this place, as someone who learned from you." She listened. "You were right," he said. "Kindness isn't giving leftovers. It's changing the room, so no one feels like they're taking what doesn't belong to them." She exhaled slowly. The sentence landed somewhere inside, where winter had lived for years. "Thank you," she replied, not overly grateful, not small, simply sincere. He nodded. "And thank you," he added, "for saying, out loud, what most people never do. The small gift." From his pocket, he pulled out something small. Not jewelry, not money. A simple card. He placed it gently on the table. "This isn't charity," he said quietly. "It's a job posting. At the warm corner. Regular shifts. Fair pay. Flexible hours. Someone thoughtful suggested we need people who understand." Anna blinked. Not for shock, from disbelief that didn't hurt. Me? Yes, he said. There's training, support. Not forever, unless you want it to be, but it's stable, and you won't be invisible. She didn't reach for the card immediately. She breathed, slowly. Years of scarcity whispered, "Don't trust it." But something else whispered louder. This wasn't handed out like pity. This was offered like respect. She looked at Leo, his eyes lit, not because of money, not because of status, but because he saw something ease in his mother's shoulders. She finally picked up the card. "I'll think," she said honestly. He nodded. "That's all I wanted. No pushing, no rescue fantasy, just possibility." Moment outside. Later, Anna stepped outside for a moment. Snowflakes landed on her lashes. Cold kissed her cheeks. But for the first time, winter didn't feel like an enemy. It felt like a season. Temporary. She closed her eyes, breathing in the sharp December air. Behind her, through the window, she saw Adrian helping move chairs, listening to volunteers, carrying boxes, not acting like the millionaire, acting like someone, finally comfortable standing among others, not above them. Leo came out and slipped his hand into hers. His voice was quiet. "Mom." "Yes. Christmas is for us too now." She bent slightly, meeting his eyes. "Yes," she said, not loud, not triumphant, simply true. Evening, epilogue. That night, their apartment looked the same. Same table, same curtains, same lamp. But the silence had changed shape. It no longer pressed down. It simply rested. Anna hung her coat, set the card beside the kettle, sat on the couch. Leo lay with his head on her lap, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. "We didn't get presents," he said softly. She nodded. "I know." He thought for a moment. "Maybe the present is that we get to sit." She brushed his hair back. "Yes," she said, "and we don't have to pretend anymore." His eyes closed. Sleep found him easily. Anna leaned back, hand relaxed for once, and the words formed quietly inside her. "We aren't outsiders anymore." Across the city, Adrian stood in his quiet apartment. He poured tea, walked to the window, watched snow fall. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like the world needed to be bigger. It only needed to be kinder. He whispered to himself, "Remember," and this time, he knew he would. Outside, winter continued. Cold, honest, but not cruel, because in one small corner of the city, someone had finally learned to open a door and leave it open, not for charity, for belonging.